You have a book here that you have released. What year did you release this commentary on Ephesians?
2015, I think it came out.
You can see this Ephesians commentary. Tell me about your Concordia commentary on Ephesians, and what was your motivation, I guess, for writing this commentary? So why now?
I've been interested in Ephesians since my seminary days, I guess. We have to do a master's thesis at seminary, and I did it on some aspects of Ephesians 4 and Paul's teaching on the office of the ministry there. I then ended up having the general editor of the commentary series as a member of my congregation in my early years in the parish, Dr. John Grothy, and he suggested to me once that I might take on this project.
Okay.
It was 20 years in the making, and I wouldn't. Sometimes people think that's remarkable. I would say I didn't do much for most of those 20 years except think. In 2010, I had a sabbatical when I did most of the writing.
Okay.
So it is the fruit of a lot of years of thinking, and it combines some theological interests that I have in terms of, as I was saying, about the office of the ministry in chapter 4, Pauline theology in general, I'm kind of interested in.
Excellent.
And also because of my interest in worship, the liturgy, Ephesians is one of the more liturgically oriented letters of the New Testament. The language, the prayer language, and its structure, its baptismal focus, that had a lot of themes that interested me.
Very, very good. Well, from what I understand about CPH commentaries, other than being Trinitarian, Christological, and distinctly Lutheran in their hermeneutical approach in unpacking the biblical texts, could you tell me anything about that you have written in terms of bringing something new to the forefront in terms of Ephesian scholarship in specific, or Pauline studies in general? Is there anything that you would like to sort of really highlight that you have uncovered that is new knowledge in one sense? It's a tricky question.
Yeah. Well, and I told the story, I think I wrote it in the introduction, about being asked at a party once in Cambridge by a dean of chapel, why do we need another commentary on Ephesians? And at the time I wasn't quite sure I could answer the question, except we don't have a good Lutheran one. And obviously the last Lutheran commentary on Ephesians was written in the early 20th century, major commentary, I should say. There's been lots of briefer things. But over the years, I think two or three things that are unique about my approach. One is to maintain the traditional view that Paul actually wrote it, as opposed to many very critical commentaries that view it as not by Paul. And that Paul wrote it to the church at Ephesus. And so one of the things I did yesterday was to see how what we know about the church of Ephesus from Acts helps us to understand the letter.
Okay.
Another element is to look at the oral quality of the language that relates to what I was saying about the liturgy, and to listen to Paul's language as opposed to just seeing it on paper. That comes out of some interests I had early on about the differences between an ancient, more oral culture and a literary culture today. And then I think finally, the focus that I've had on the baptismal themes of the letter, which have not been drawn out by too many people before.
Sure.
That I think Paul uses baptism to address certain divisions in the church at Ephesus between Jews and Gentiles, in particular, to say you find your unity in your one baptism in Christ.
Excellent. I mean, one of the things that I also did notice that I perhaps was a bit subtle, and I hadn't noticed it before, was again that liturgical, the language that Paul uses, and how you linked the Apostles' Creed, which is Trinitarian, but it has a Christological emphasis, particularly with the second article. And I like how you linked that to, I believe it was Ephesians 1, and how you showed the chiasm, or the chiastic, is that the correct word? The chiastic approach, how it's to the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, but the Son, it was like the Apostles' Creed, but it had a Christological emphasis. He writes more about Christ. Did you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is the opening sort of prayer and praise language in chapter 1. if you look very closely at it, you can see it begins with the Father, moves on to the Son, concludes with the Spirit. But he weaves all the way through this language of in Christ, in him. And I think today we need a renewal of emphasis on how the Trinity actually works. We kind of take it for granted. Well, the Father's God, the Son's God, the Spirit's God, and I'm done with that. But the more I read the New Testament, the more Trinitarian I find it to be. And to understand how Christ is always at the center, as our Redeemer, as the one who took flesh for us, and so on. But that the Spirit leads us to Christ, Christ leads us to the Father. But it's only in Christ that we find our way to the Father, not through any other means.
Amen. That's fantastic. Dr. Winger, thank you so much for your time. May God bless you as you continue to minister to both us and the wider church and all that God has called you